You're listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, as always, alongside former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. So England will play a series decider in the third test against Pakistan after their heavy defeat in the second. We'll hear from Ben Stokes and ask if they've been found out on spin-friendly surfaces. SENZ commentator Dan McHardy joins us to look back at a historic win for the Black Caps as they secure their first test win in India since 1988. And the White Ferns assistant coach Craig McMillan joins us to reflect on winning their first ever T20 World Cup title. And we'll round up the week's other big stories as the Ashes dates are announced, and we'll bring you the final word. So plenty to come over the next hour. This is Following On. So England go down by 152 runs in the second test on a used wicket in Multan, the same one that they won the first test on, meaning the two teams will play a series decider this week. Ben Stokes promised at the beginning of his captaincy tenure that the draw was off the table, and it was pretty obvious right from the beginning of the run chase, Harmy, that it would be over pretty quickly one way or the other, and it went Pakistan's way. Overall thoughts? I mean, I listened to your daily podcasts, and obviously you've spoken a lot about the Test match now, but there were no excuses from England. I mean, Brendan McCullum was very, very quick to say, you know, we'd much rather have a used wicket that does something than a flat one like we had in the first Test.
Yeah, absolutely. I think little passages. I think that's probably cost England, but I think all in all, I think it was an excellent Test match. I think England contributed to what was the one before the first Test match was so boring, it was ridiculous. I know the lads batted brilliantly in Joe and Harry, but I mean, I'd much rather see this. This is proper cricket. This is contest between bat and ball. England have got issues against spin. I mean, they have. You can't sugarcoat the fact that England don't play spin as well as what the players seem, or the way if the pitches are flat. But that's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way it is. Not many teams go over to India or Pakistan and play spin very well. And I mean, play proper spin. When it's spinning and turning and spitting and bouncing, you're playing on wickets which are conducive to it. Not many teams inside from outside the sort of subcontinent play spin that well. So especially the way and the intensity it was. So no, I've got no complaints. The odd drop catch, I think it was a crucial toss, which Ben didn't get Shan Masood, which he won. I don't believe it was win the toss, win the game, but I think it went hugely in their favour. And then them 2 or 3 catches in that half an hour period when Jamie Smith dropped one, Joe Root dropped one. I mean, England chasing 210 psychologically is completely different to chasing that. They're close to the 300. Once it got to 300 or close to 300, England had no chance. I was saying to Sam Allard after each day, I mean, England wouldn't want to chase 150 on this, but I think if they'd chased 210, I think Pakistan might have had a bit of a wobble rather than, especially with England coming at them. But I've got no problem England going aggressive. I mean, you stand there, bunker down, and try and survive. You get bowled out for 110. England get bowled out for 144, having a go. At least you are. I think when you're having a go, you put yourself in a better position mentally, and I think you also put in a better. It sounds stupid, but you put yourself in a better position defensively as well when you're trying to hit the ball, trying to access the ball. So there was some really good bowling. I mean, Carson Potts were excellent. They really were. I thought again they were very good. I thought Bashir looked as he was getting better as the Test match went on. Jack was Jack. It was good to see the captain bowling. I think they've got some decisions to make this week. Who they pick from a bowling point of view. Looked at a picture just earlier at Rawalpindi that there's what looks like 3 fast bowlers standing there waiting to start marking their run up, but actually it's not. It's 3 patio heaters at either end of the square trying to dry the Rawalpindi pitch out. If I was Pakistan, I'd play an absolute raging turner and play England again, play the throw spinners again. England, did they bring Rachin in? I'm not so sure. I think the seamer will, a big tall seamer will do just as good a job. Somehow find a way of wheeling Coss out for the 3rd game in a row. But I think that might be difficult as well. So it'll be interesting to see where England go, not just from a balance of their side, but which actually seem as their pick, because Potts and Cast did enough to keep their place in the side. But it's whether their bodies will allow. But no, I had no complaints. I thought England played some good cricket. I just think Pakistan played better, and fair play to them. They've been under so much pressure. They've been under the microscope for so long. Their selectors have indicated for dropping the three big names, and their spinners certainly bailed them out and did a good job. So it'll be interesting. It's been a good series going into Rawalpindi at 1-1.
I'm not sure that enough trumpets have been played to celebrate the performance of Sajid Khan and Noman Ali. It took all 20 wickets between them. Absolutely brilliant, I thought. And they bowled a lot of overs as well, got through a lot of work. Sajid Khan, late developer. He was not until he was in his 30s that he knew that cricket would be his career. But let's, before you talk about them, Harmy, let's hear from Ben Stokes defending England's aggressive approach at the start and in fact throughout the run chase.
It's actually a lot easier when you know what you've got to go out there and do. Defending the ball was probably the hardest thing to do on that wicket. Everyone was sort of treating a sweep shot like a defence, but it was a scoring option. On those type of wickets, when you're looking in there to defend, you sort of only got one thing in your mind, which is, I can't score. There's eventually going to be one with my name on it. So yeah, obviously when you're looking to play the cross-batted shots with the sweeps and stuff like that, you've obviously got a chance of dismissal, but at least you're giving yourself a chance of scoring runs. And obviously when you're chasing down a total, that's what you need to look at, and you need to find a way to give yourself the best chance of scoring those runs whilst also, putting pressure back onto them. If you're just sitting there on that wicket, I think it was pretty evident that we would have got nowhere near to that total that we would have done if we didn't go out there with that intent to really put the pressure on with our sweep shots.
That's Ben Stokes. I mean, the one thing that, one of many things you say about England is that they are very, very watchable. Like you knew that, throughout most of my cricket covering career, Harmy, you get into a situation like that and you know that it's going to be a grind for as long as the batsman can survive. They're going to try and crawl their way there on hands and knees at 1.8 runs and over. And, it's sort of like, oh, we'll come back in a couple of hours, see how they're getting on. But you knew at the beginning of that run chase that it was going to be, fun. I
mean, sometimes having a go, it's safer having a real go rather than just standing there and blocking it. Standing there blocking, you've got 4 men round the bat. I mean, if you have a swing and you get one in the air, likelihood is, you've got 4 man and the wicketkeeper, the bowler out the equation. So there's less fielders in the deep, but I think that's England's safest option. And I think sometimes you get yourself, like I said before, when you're being positive, you get yourself in a better position defensively because you're watching the ball, you're trying to hit the ball. When you're just trying to survive, then the negative mindset of not moving your feet, not going at the ball, you don't get yourself, for me, you don't get yourself in a better position. So, yeah, England are very, very watchable. There's always something happening. Is there a worry? I think there's quite a few people sort of coming on and having a go and saying, it's a bit of a worry further down the line. I mean, we play India at home, we play Australia, where we ain't playing on spinning pitches in any of them 10 Test matches at this minute in time, up until the end of Rawalpindi. That'll be it for this Test team playing against top quality spin in these conditions. For me, I'd don't have a go at it. Really would. Keep going. Like I said before, back yourselves to win the game by hook or by crook, but don't die in a hole. And that's obviously what Ben's mantra is as life and as captain. So I didn't have any problem with the way they went about the job. I think they lost the game in their sort of fielding when they didn't grab the chances. I thought they bowled very, very well, and they grabbed them chances and they chased less than 200 or around 200. And I think Pakistan would have been under a huge amount of pressure there. I think once it got in excess of 250 and beyond, then I think Pakistan were always safe. And they played the best cricket and they won the game. So I'm really looking forward to Rawalpindi.
The final word in this section must go to Shan Masood, who's very, very highly regarded at Yorkshire, isn't he? I mean, he's a very, very calm character. But talking of pressure, I mean, he's just lost his first half dozen in charge. Captain of Pakistan, lose the first 6, haven't won a test at home for 11 matches in a row, winless for 11 games, and yet he remained very calm. I was looking for signs of a little tetchiness at the very least, if not, a big snap. But he was very calm. He was very phlegmatic, wasn't he? I mean, we had him on the show a couple of years ago.
He spoke brilliantly, didn't he?
He spoke brilliantly, and he's got a perspective on life, hasn't he? Because he lost his sister. He told us about his sister passing away, and I think he's exactly the kind of character that Pakistan cricket need amongst all the volatility. He's the calming oil on troubled waters. So let's hear what he said after the test.
It was 3 years and 11 months. That's not acceptable for Pakistan cricket. We pride ourselves on how well we play this game and how we see ourselves as a team. So for us to get a result and hopefully start something here in our own conditions. And then also you look at adversity. I think going through that adverse situation for years and still getting a result, I think that's the character you want from your players, from your staff, from your cricket board. And I think everyone's been spot on this week, and everyone's responded well to whatever circumstances we had presented to ourselves after the loss last week. So very heartening. I feel at the end of the day it's about characters that come onto the field, characters off the field, and I think a lot of people showed their character and invested in a good result for Pakistan this week.
Pakistan captain Shan Masood. I was really particularly pleased for him personally, Harmy.
Yeah, I was. And you talk about when he came on the show, he spoke, excellent English. I think he's educated at England. And his time at Yorkshire was a tough one as well. I mean, we all know the backstory of the racism, the stuff that was at Yorkshire, and then you go in as a Pakistani player, captain to Yorkshire. I mean, I think that's pressure in itself. And then it times it by 100, then you have to lead your country as well, which is, unbelievable pressure when politics in that part of the world, in the sport, is just unbelievable. Having 27 different selectors, one captain, losing 6 games. You're right. And there are times where I was thinking he's going to come into this press conference and just fire off to everybody, because I would have lost it by then. But he was very calm. He understood the sort of process that him and Jason Gillespie were trying to achieve. And now you're seeing, the fruits of it. They need to play on wickets, which give them a chance. And that is so evident off the back of this Multan game. That if you keep playing on flat wickets, which give us no chance of winning, their team just isn't suited to play on the wickets that Pakistan produce. Shaheen Shah Afridi, Naseem Shah, they need something in the pitch. They're not the fast bowlers they once were through the air. So they need a little bit of assistance in the surface, and obviously the spinners need it to turn, and it hasn't for the last however many years in Pakistan. So I'm pleased for Masood. He is a good man. He conducts himself absolutely brilliantly, and along with Jason Gillespie, I can see them having more good days than bad days. Just now they're getting that sort of monkey off the back that they've got the first victory, and it'll be interesting to see when, because he has to come back, when they reintroduce Babar Azam back into the group. Because we talk about New Zealand winning without Kane Williamson. Pakistan have won without Babar Azam. It'll be like England winning without Joe Root. It'll be like Australia winning without Steve Smith. Class is always permanent, and they've just got to find some way of getting Babar Azam back into the team and back in scoring runs. Because if they do, then they're going to be even better.
So New Zealand win their first test in India since 1988 after beating India by 8 wickets in Bengaluru to go 1-0 up in the 3-match series. Before we bring in the man you just heard on commentary there, let's hear from New Zealand captain Tom Latham, who's been reacting to a historic win for the Black Caps.
There's been a lot of teams that have come here over a long period of time. I think 36 years is the last time that we won here. So yeah, it's obviously a really special feeling to be in this position. I think the work we did in the first and second innings with the ball and then obviously with the bat, really set the game up for us. And yeah, it's obviously a proud moment for this group, and yeah, one we'll celebrate.
Well, that's New Zealand's new captain, Tom Latham. He never sounds particularly excited, but I'm sure he was absolutely jumping up and down inside that calm, quiet exterior. Dan McHardy, what a test match. I mean, we seem to have had them back to back to back at the moment, historic wins, but that surely, well, I shouldn't say surely, is that amongst New Zealand's top three ever?
Oh, you've put me on the spot there, man. It's hello to you all. Lovely to see your beautiful faces. It was an extraordinary test match. If I can start by not trying to look through a complete New Zealand lens, which you could probably forgive us, we're a little bit cricket crazy in New Zealand, and especially after what's happened in the last 24 hours or so. It's just a remarkable test match to see a side decide to bat first, be bowled out for 46 with 5 players not getting a single run amongst them in 31 overs, and then a side pile on 354 runs, I think it was, as a lead, right? Like, the history of the game tells you there's only one winner. There's only one outcome, and it's probably coming quicker, sooner rather than later. But the way India fought back, the way Sarfraz Khan scored his first test match 100, the way Rishabh Pant literally on one leg sort of came out and toyed with the New Zealanders at times, making the attack look quite toothless. New Zealand fans were fearing the worst, that they would concede, will have the biggest lead after the first innings in Test cricket history to go on and lose a test. That was the mindset of New Zealand cricket fans, fellas. My phone was certainly telling me that. Why? Because New Zealand's form has been quite patchy over the last year or two. So to see them, despite some early morning wobbles, when Latham, who you are right, Manners, doesn't get particularly excited. He is from Christchurch after all. I don't think they're allowed to. Getting out second ball of the day. Once they got through that tricky period with Bumrah, who was just brilliant, problem was India couldn't apply pressure from the other end. To see them win by 8 wickets, to see Rachin Ravindra, who the world knows about, New Zealand's dreamed of him realising his potential now for 5 or 6 years. It's got to be certainly right up there. Like an incredible test match, and New Zealand winning. Population of 5 million against India. It's still hard to fathom all these hours on.
Then you talk about a population of 5 million, and I think year upon year you always get the sort of generational spiel, which is where's the next one's coming from. I mean, you looked at the likes of Tim Southey and Kane Williamson. Trent Bolt's gone now. Neil Wagner's gone. There was this good side that New Zealand put together. They're coming of age all at the same time, where they're going over the hill a little bit, and you're going, well, how are New Zealand going to be in 3-5 years' time? In Rachin Ravindra and Will O'Rourke, especially Ravindra, but Will O'Rourke seems to have come, and you can get Kyle Jamieson fit. I mean, New Zealand cricket is looking as though there is something on the horizon.
Harmy, I'm with you on that. I've been dreaming now for far too many months of a pace attack featuring Will O'Rourke, Matt Henry, who is blossoming. He's had to bide his time, fellas, but he's now got 100 test wickets. I think alongside Neil Wagner, second fastest to reach that as far as test matches. You throw in young Ben Stokes, who the English hopefully will get to see. He bowls with genuine pace. He's even quicker than O'Rourke. That's a bit of an attack to dream on. The batting, not as many potential stars coming through, but we're all hopeful. Kane Williamson, who New Zealand's won this test without Kane Williamson. Like, seriously, we all thought that's a massive body blow, but they've gone on and done it. But Rachin Ravindra looks like a fixture in the middle order for years to come. So yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel, Harmy. It's been a pretty, it's sort of dark sort of mindset from a lot of New Zealand fans that I've spoken to over the last 12 months. Why? Because we've gone to dizzying heights with the World Test Championship victory, but there's been significant turnover. Bolt's not there from that side. Ross Taylor, one of our very best ever, is not there. BJ Watling, perennially underrated cricketer, is not there. So we've had to turn over talent. And, post the great 80s side who won in India in 1988, we went through a long malaise after that. But it looks like we might be able to throw a heavy punch again.
There's Kyle Jameson as well. I mean, there's so many wonderful cricketers. I know he's injured at the moment. Just before we ask you the next question, let's hear from Rachin Ravindra, because obviously he scored his first Test century away from home in Bengaluru, and given his family's links with the city, he's been explaining how extra special it was to reach 3 figures there.
Yeah, it's obviously special. Obviously, having my dad in the crowd is massive. A lot of family who are watching the game, probably at the stadium and then at home on TV. I know they're very, very proud, and makes me happy that they're able to watch, a relative play in their hometown, which is very cool. And I know, Dad and Mum would be very, very proud in that. Me being able to play in their hometown and where they grew up is pretty special. And I'm like I always say in these, I'm fully Kiwi, 100% Kiwi, but it's nice to have that Indian heritage based here in Bengaluru.
That's Rachin Ravindra. He is a multi-format cricketer with a very, very high potential ceiling, isn't he? I mean, I honestly, when I see him, I see future greatness, if that's a thing.
I'm with you on that. My dear friend and SENZ colleague Grant Elliott played alongside a very young Rachin Ravindra playing through with Wellington, my home province. And he said he was the most talented cricketer he's seen in the New Zealand system. And this was at 18 or 19 years of age. Now, it took a while for him to get there, of course. There were lots of magnificent 30s, 40s, 60s, 70s. But you could always see it. The raw numbers might not have been there, Manus, but your eye can tell you so much. And from the naked eye, the talent was just so obvious. He played a test in 2021, I think a couple the following year, but sat out of Test cricket for a whole year in 2023. But it really has been his year or so, his breakout performance at the One Day World Cup. I don't need to tell you about, but the way he has sort of blossomed this year in Test cricket, I think he's averaging close to 60s, got 200s now. And this one was quite brilliant. One of the very best I have seen. And to see the way he dictated terms to those brilliant Indian spinners, like very few New Zealanders have ever done so. There were times during Coney and I were looking at each other like in awe that a ball would pitch in one part of the pitch and he would be able to hit it in 4 different places. He'd hit it square, through extra cover, down the ground, through the onside. And there were a couple of very sort of odd looks from Jadeja and Ashwin and Kuldeep thinking, where the heck's this kid come from? So 24 years of age. We just hope, and this is another factor of our population, matters and Harmy. We're not big. We don't have the biggest pot of gold here, and we do hope that we will be able to keep him in our system. We've had a string of players turn down digital contracts, going the freelancing type, but what I see from him and what I know of him, he has a real passion for the Test game. And that gives me hope that the world will get to enjoy him as a Test cricketer for many years to come. But he really is, he's quite something, isn't he?
He is, yeah. He's a special talent. And I agree with you. I mean, we were commentating on it as well, and we were at the other end of the world, but you didn't have to be in the same room to understand what, fantastic cricket shots. He hit one through mid-wicket, close into 100. And I think I was on commentary at that time. In radio, man has one of the greatest radio broadcasters ever. The biggest thing you don't have in radio is silence. I was speechless. I couldn't say anything. I was like in awe of watching the television. I apologise. I haven't said anything because that shot was unbelievable. I just had to watch it again because I was like, this kid had so much time. He was brilliant. Somebody on the other end, Dan, of his career path. Tim Southey had a good week. I thought he bowled. Yeah, I thought he held the unit together. Didn't bowl as many overs as Matt Henry or others, but very economical as usual. Is it a case of, can we get Tim Southey, like Jimmy Anderson, a farewell series at home and say thank you, because he has been a very, very good player for New Zealand. He led them when I think nobody else was really there to lead them. And is it a case of Tim Southey, maybe he's missing one here, playing the last test, and then going up against England and saying thank you very much to Tim Southey. We've got Will O'Rourke, we've got Ben Sayers, we've got Kyle Jamieson, and let Tim Southey go off into the sunset.
Well, I think with Kyle Jamieson on the sidelines, he's firmly in the mix. Even when he looked cooked, guys. I'll be frank, and up until that Test match, the numbers had been, hard for him and all New Zealand fans to read. I think he was taking wickets at 70 this year. He was down on pace. Still the swing, the traditional, taking it away from the right-handers, but players were just watching it, sail past quite easily and dictating terms to him. So he's relinquished the captaincy. And what I enjoyed was seeing him having a smile on his face, fellas.
Yeah.
And I thought he bowled very, very well. And those runs with Rachin and Ravindra were so crucial. When you look at the context of the game, New Zealand, you were thinking at one stage might have a very good lead after Conway played ever so well, but we sort of lost our way and Southey knuckled down. And Southey's a fascinating character, guys. He is a lightning rod for discussion in New Zealand, and that discussion is often critical. He burst onto the scene, as a 19-year-old in 2008 against the English, picked up a 5 for, smashed 70. He slogged 70, fellas, and everyone, well, not everyone, a lot of New Zealand cricket fans, I think, got their expectations way too high about his ability with the bat and thought he could become a true all-rounder, but he's been a wonderful servant, and I think he's had an amazing ability of always being available. He's incredibly fit. He plays all 3 games, and just a testament to the preparation he puts in away from the field that he's raked up the numbers he's had. And he's always had this amazing knack, fellas, of just when you think he's about to get dropped, he performs. He does something. He's done that in one.
Stuart Broad's exactly like that.
Yeah. He's done that in one-day cricket a lot, post the 2015 World Cup. Some of those, the numbers, were telling you New Zealand might need to move on here, but they didn't. So I'm delighted for him, and I think he'll be firmly in a 13-man squad for the first Test match when England arrive.
Guilty. He fooled me. I thought anybody who can hit the ball that well at 19 surely will develop into an all-rounder. But enough of Tim Southey. It'd be wrong of us not to talk about the White Ferns. What a 24 hours it's been, or 48 hours it's been for New Zealand cricket. Sophie Devine, Amelia Kerr, they are World Cup winners. So that was a brilliant campaign. I'm a huge fan of the White Ferns. Did you get a chance to follow it much in between the test match series?
Well, yeah, not as much as I would have liked. And I'll put my hand up. I didn't watch the final live because of commitments, but it was cricketing Christmas for 12 hours to wake up, then watch it and see the result. Just so thrilled for them, so very proud of their achievements. The best gifts are the unexpected ones, and this was so unexpected. New Zealand had lost 10 T20 internationals leading up to the warm-up games, where I think they played South Africa, it might have been Sri Lanka. 10 losses in a row. The criticism was fierce, and rightly so. The improvements were incremental, if they're at all. And we wondered how would they go in the tournament. I felt for Sophie Devine. Every post-match interview, the captain seemingly was saying the same things. In fact, rather unfairly, on my show, I started to play interviews from other games, and no one knew. It looked like they had no answers, but they did. And it was a true squad performance. Amelia Kerr, superstar, incredible performance. I think she's found her rhythm again with her bowling. Had tapered off a touch over the last couple of summers as maybe she put a little bit more effort in becoming the true all-rounder and the brilliant all-rounder that she is. And inside that top 5 or 6 with Bates, Devine, Kerr, I always felt the batting could be good enough. But I think this is a tournament about the bowling group. Everyone has contributed, whether it's Millie Kerr, Rosemary Mair. I'm thrilled to see what she's been able to do. She had a long time out of the games, come back, bowls with good aggression, moves it around. She picked up 3 wickets in the final. But I think the bizarre thing about this tournament, fellas, is you look at that group, their pedigree, and what they've done in international cricket. I think 5 or 6 of them have had their best series ever in a world tournament. So things have aligned just perfectly. And I'm thrilled for Devine and Bates especially, have been amazing servants. And I'll long remember that embrace, that warm embrace those two shared as the game came to an end. So, kudos to them, bravo to them, incredibly proud. But yeah, I was not expecting it. I was not expecting it at all.
Dan, we'll see you in just over a month, but it's in live, rather than on screen. So thank you very much for your time. We look forward to it, and what a series that'll be in December.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you all and welcome you back here to New Zealand. I don't know where to turn now, fellas. We're very high here in New Zealand. Can we continue this? Or the negative man in me isn't thinking the only way is down, maybe in Brunei.
Keep looking up.
Hopefully the Black Caps can shock us again, Harmy.
Yeah, keep looking up. Always look up. It's a long way down. Yeah.
So New Zealand have won their first ever T20 World Cup after victory over South Africa in the final in Dubai. Great for the women's game. Wonderful that we had 2 finalists, neither of whom had won the competition before, won the World Cup before, and Craig McMillan, a big part of that success. I know that you won't acknowledge it, but you are widely credited with making a big difference to the New Zealand women's team, Amaka. And I have to say that it wasn't a particularly auspicious build-up for the White Ferns before the tournament. Didn't they win? Or didn't win, something like 10 in a row before the tournament, and then they walk away as world champions. Congratulations.
Thanks, Neil. Really appreciate that. A really special day. And you're right, the storyline was written for either one of those two sides, those two nations that have had a little bit of heartbreak at white ball finals over the years at World Cups. So just so proud of the girls, the way they went about it, the classy performance they put on in a final. And as you mentioned, the lead up to this World Cup hasn't been perhaps the smoothest. There's been some losses that have been tough to take, but there's been a lot of work go on in the background, I guess, to get us to the point that we got to throughout this tournament. And for it to all come together at this time, it just couldn't have worked out any better. So just rap for the girls.
And Maka, Sophie Devine, she's sort of relinquished the captaincy after the tournament, but a special word for her and Susie Bates. To win the World Cup, what they've done for New Zealand cricket. Their embrace at the end of the game. Anybody that loves cricket must have had a lump in their throat or a tear in their eye. That was amazing.
Yeah, so true, Steve. Those two and Lea Tahuhu as well, but it's been around a long time. There's been a lot of heartbreak for the side over the years. The last time we were in a World Cup final was 2010. That's 14 years, so it's been a long time between drinks. And when you talk about Bates and Devine, you talk about 2 of the best female players New Zealand have ever produced. So it was a fairy tale, not an ending for those 2, but a great way for them to put it on their CV. It was the last thing that was really missing from their careers. Devine, such an inspirational leader, such a powerhouse player. She really is. She leads from the front with her actions. Susie Bates opens up, sets the tone, is really the heartbeat of the side in many ways. She's just got that infectious sort of personality that just drags everyone along. Rap for those 2. But, the amazing thing is how young the side is. I think we've got 6 players under 25. We had a number of 20-year-olds who, are going to relive this experience for their whole career. They're going to be around for 10 to 12 years, and they're going to have been a world champion and that experience to fall back on over that period of time. So that's so exciting for this team.
Just a couple of other of the ladies that I'd like you to talk about. Brooke Halliday, how good was she in that innings? Was really special. And Amelia Kerr, Rosemary Mayer. I mean, just tell us a bit about them.
Well, you've reeled off a few names there, Neil, that have all been so important to the cause over this tournament. Let's start with Brooke Halliday. Two really important innings in the semi-final against the West Indies, where we didn't have a lot of momentum throughout the batting innings. It was a tough pitch, it was slow, and we didn't really have anything going. She came in and just basically found the boundary, and it was only a short innings, but it gave us momentum to actually get a score that we felt was going to be defendable, and it ended up being the case. And she played with that freedom. That's what we've been asking for her for a long time, Brooke, because she's got all the shots. She's unique. She's a left-hander, which is a real rarity in the women's game. There's very few left-handers. So if you've got one of the two of those in your team, then it makes it a real bonus because they're hard to bowl to. So, and then obviously in the final, that partnership with her and Mealy Kerr, really, I felt, took the game away from South Africa, where at one stage it probably felt like we were going to be around that 130 mark, which is a really sort of middling score that doesn't scare a lot of those top sides. But that partnership put us in a strong position where we could push on, be aggressive, and get that total around 160, which we knew, with the way the surface was playing, was going to be tough to chase. Rosemary Mayer's come back from injury. Steve, you would love her, fast bowler, has those fast bowling genes, just loves bowling quick, but has developed a slow ball for the tournament because originally we were going to Bangladesh and we knew that conditions would probably suit spinners more than quick bowlers, and the ability to take pace off the ball was going to be crucial. And a number of the wickets she picked up over the last 2 or 3 matches were from that new slow ball that she's developed. So, yeah, she's been a rock star for us. But all three, Mealy Kerr, player of the tournament, stood up when we needed, and that's what you need. You need key players when you need to win a final, standing up, and our girls did that.
We had Ian Smith on the show last week, and he talked about New Zealand, not because of, players don't sort of shout from the rooftops and not sort of wanting to be big in the headlines, and basically said we're not very good at producing heroes because of the characters that New Zealand, whatever sport, have always produced.
Yeah.
There's heroes in that team. You come back from the world winning the World Cup, that's hero status, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is, and it's probably the shot in the arm that the women's game needed back in New Zealand, because the reality is, Steve, that New Zealand is a small country. We don't have the playing depth that other countries have. We don't have the financial resources, but one of the key things that New Zealanders do is they find a way. They find a way. They gel together. And you're right, we don't have a lot of rock stars. Well, of course, the likes of Devine and Bates are rock stars in the women's game. But what we rely on is everyone doing their job. And if everyone does their job to the best of their ability, you add all those sums together and you usually get a pretty good performance. And I guess that's what you saw last night in the final.
A couple of things from me. First of all, you've got an ODI series against India starting in a couple of days' time. I find that scheduling interesting, to say the very least. But what about the men? What about that extraordinary win in Bengaluru? You had to have been keeping an eye on that.
I watched it, Neil, and it was really just the perfect start to the day for me. Only a third win in India, historic. I mean, we all know how hard it is to tour India and beat India in their conditions. Really, only Australia and England have done it in recent times. I think 36 years since we last won a test in New Zealand. That was back in '88. So, yeah, it was a good toss to lose, wasn't it? That one. But, you've still got to make the most of the conditions. India, always hard to beat. They showed that in the second innings where they put a big total. So just wrap for the guys, because it's really a bit of a transition period for that men's side. It's been a bit of a golden era over a long period of time, but there was no Kane Williamson, changing captain. Some of those other players that have been through that golden era aren't there anymore. But I guess it just shows, and sometimes it doesn't get talked about enough, just the depth that we have within New Zealand cricket through, I think, a very strong domestic structure that allows players like Rachin, Ravindra, and I'm sure, Steve, you enjoyed watching Will O'Rourke bowl, because he's an absolute gun. Like yourself, Tool gets that extra bounce at a good pace, hurries batters up. So our domestic scene is producing players like that, which is great.
Yeah, I did enjoy watching Willow Rock. We were part of the SEN, talkSPORT and SEN had the commentary for that game, Macca, and I was on it for 2 days, and I really enjoyed watching Willow Rock. You throw in Sears, if you can get Kyle Jamieson fit, all of a sudden you've got a possible bowling attack that could take on England when England come in a few months' time, in a month's time. But talk to me about Ravindra. I mean, I was in awe. I'm just saying to Dan McHardy 5-10 minutes ago, there was one shot through mid-wicket. Commentating on the radio, you don't have silence. I was gobsmacked. I could not believe some of the shots he was playing. He is a special talent. He is a fantastic player. And you talk about the depth of the group, but somebody's going to have to eventually replace Kane Williamson. You've got a good one there, mate.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, and you saw it at the World Cup a couple of years ago where he came out of nowhere and produced a couple of hundreds and really set his star on the world stage. But I guess, and we've played against some of the very best players over the years, haven't we? But the best players have time. And when he came out in that second innings, batting was not easy. Bumrah was getting the ball to jump, making Conway look uncomfortable. And he just looked at ease. He made batting look easy in really tough conditions. So he's going to be around for a long time. He's going to score a lot of runs for New Zealand. So as a New Zealander, it's great to see a player of that class at that young age making his mark and showing how good he is at an early age.
And finally, from me, Macca, coaching, is that where you're at now? Or will you go back to broadcasting and you jump between the two?
Well, look, I've loved being back in coaching, Neil. I had 5.5 years off, so my last coaching gig was actually the 2019 World Cup when I was batting coach with the New Zealand side. And there were still a few ghosts from that final, if I'm to be brutally honest. It's taken a wee while, not to get over, but certainly last night's helped, let me say that. But I've loved this group. They've really welcomed me in with open arms. At the moment, it's only a part-time role, and I guess that's one of the challenges for New Zealand is that we don't have full-time coaches with this team. And hopefully that's something that we can change moving forward. We've got 2 full-time coaches, but the other 2, myself included, are part-time. So there's going to be a bit of broadcasting. I'll be doing the first 2 test matches when England come out. So really looking forward to having England back in our country. I know that the first 3 days of the Basin Reserve Test have already sold out, and I'm pretty sure that the other 2 test matches at Hagley and Hamilton will sell out as well. So should be a terrific series.
Well, Harmy and I will be there. talkSPORT have the rights. We'll be doing ball-by-ball commentary. And so we will see you in the commentary box.
Look forward to it, guys.
That's the wonderful Craig McMillan, who is, I didn't know he was part-time, but assistant coach for the White Ferns World Champions. Let's talk about England now. Knocked out by the West Indies in what was effectively a quarter-final and hammered. And Australia equally resoundingly hammered by South Africa by 8 wickets in the semi-final. So hugely disappointing for England. Before I get your thoughts on that, Harmy, let's hear from a very obviously downbeat, I'd say gutted, England coach John Lewis afterwards.
Yeah, I'm pretty gutted, to be honest. We've worked incredibly hard over a long period of time working towards this point. We've put a lot of really good foundations into the team. We've grown our team over a long period of time. We've given lots of opportunities to lots of different people, and we feel like we had a really good formula to come and play our best cricket out here. And we haven't done that today, and it's really disappointing. You put a lot of time and effort and thought into the process of getting to this point, and then you put the players out on the field, and you want the players to go and play their best cricket, because you know that at their best, this group of players is a really good cricket team. And the bit that I suppose we didn't quite get right today was maybe a little bit of our reacting to what the opposition were doing, and obviously our execution of our skill in the field. But we've got a really young bowling group, and they'll be better for this experience. Whilst they might not feel that now, they will be better for this experience, and I'm pretty sure that they'll come back a stronger team for it.
That's John Lewis. Very, very disappointing, Harmy, for England. I mean, they were reasonably convincing against South Africa in the group game, which they won with 5 balls to spare, 4 balls to spare, I think. So it wasn't, a galloping victory, but otherwise unconvincing, and some big names really didn't do themselves justice.
Yeah, there was a couple of players didn't really turn up, but again, in there that game, the knockout, when they got knocked out, the game it wasn't about bat and ball, was it? It was the basic thing of fielding. It was the catching that really cost them, and that's something John Lewis, as a coach, will probably look at himself and everything that goes with preparation. That's the easy part. If you get knocked over, you get done over by somebody that bats well or bowls well, but when you contribute it to in your demise by the fielding side of it, I think that's when you look at your team and go, were they prepared enough? I've got no doubt they were. Did the freeze on the big occasion? There's quite a few of them played big games and big tournaments, not just for England, but for their franchises as well. It just seemed to be one of them days where nothing stuck to their hand, and they dropped about 4 or 5 catches. And I think that's what would be disappointing if I was John Lewis, that we didn't get knocked out by a bit of brilliance. We got knocked out by some sloppy play by ourselves. So, and I think you can look at yourself in the mirror for that. But I think all in all, I didn't think the tournament was very good. I must admit, I really didn't think the tournament was a great spectacle, largely down, nothing to do with how the women's game is or the women's game was played. I thought the pitches were terrible. I really thought the pitches were terrible. And that didn't help. So I wasn't sort of racing to the TV and going, I'm going to really watch a good game here. Because in the last sort of 3 or 4 years, I've really enjoyed watching the women's game, especially the 100. The only good thing I'm ever going to say about the 100 is that I enjoy watching the women's game in the 100. But I didn't enjoy this tournament because I didn't think the pitches were good enough. And I think because of that, I think the ICC have let the women's game, the women's players down. I really do think that the pitches were really substandard. But England, I don't think they can complain. It was their own doing is why they got knocked out.
Okay, Harmy, just a point about the Dubai International Cricket Stadium. I don't know whether you've played there under lights, but they don't have floodlight pylons in the conventional sense. They have what they call, what's nickname is the Ring of Fire. They have this ring of floodlights all the way around the whole stadium. It's unique in the world of cricket as far as I'm aware. And South Africa, for example, played 3 games there. Some of the England players had never even had a training session at Dubai. It's a unique situation. Now, I know that it shouldn't be an excuse, but my question is, why? Why hadn't they trained there? Why? I mean, if the ICC said no, that's the training schedule, and that's then I don't know. I mean, would you have gone 2 days early and made a special trip and just made it happen, made sure that the girls had played in those conditions under those lights before that game?
I think if I was coach, I'd make sure I had a good long fielding session under it. And I know, the horse is bolted and hindsight's a wonderful thing, but you might not be able to sort of bat and bowl on it. But I've throughout my whole career, whenever you went to a newish venue or a venue that you hadn't, been to or played at, Duncan Fletcher would be hitting high catches and he'd be making sure that we had an intensive fielding session on that ground, especially if you were playing the white ball game. So there are things you can do. I'm sure the ICC didn't want them on the ground. A lot of ifs, buts, and maybes, but they're not from a visual point of view. If it is something different, you have to make sure that you spend a little bit more time than you normally would in preparation on that facility, because it's massive. It is. It's huge. It's not the usual visual see. If you're standing at fine leg and the ball comes flat at you, it's going to come flat at you out of the light rather than up in the air. When you're looking into the pylon, when a ball's looping at you. So it is a different visual experience. But they're professional enough now, and they'll not hide their disappointment, but they should be honest enough with each other and go, you can make any excuse you want. We should have caught them. If we did, we would have gotten through. We might have been winning the final, but there will be some soul searching, because losing because you drop catches is never easy to take, because that's one part of the game that you can work doubly hard on. Somebody knocks you over with a good ball, somebody plays an unbelievable innings with the bat, then fine, you can dip your cap and say, well, we did everything we could. But when you contribute to losing because you drop 4 or 5 catches, that hurts.
You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. And the latest Following On India is out now as well. And here, Jared Kimber explains why India's defeat in the first test against New Zealand has damaged their chances of reaching the World Test Championship final.
They now have India 7 test matches left in the World Test Championship. By my count, and some of this depends on what happens, but by my count, they have to win 4 of those 7 test matches. So 2 of those are against New Zealand at home, but 5 of those are against Australia. So if there's a draw in the series against Australia, or they only win 1, they will miss out on the World Test Championship, and they were probably the safest team. Now, a lot of that revolves on what Australia do in Sri Lanka and what South Africa do against Bangladesh and in their home series. But I would have said before this game that India were the team I had penciled in to the World Test Championship final. I've just erased a couple of letters.
Okay, on to any other business, Harmy, the stories that have caught your attention, your eye and my eye. Jordan Cox is set to keep wicket in New Zealand for at least 1 test, as Jamie Smith will miss at least 1 game due to paternity leave. That's really interesting because he's going to be racking up some air miles, Jordan Cox, over the next month or 2.
Yeah, he's going to find himself going around the world. I mean, I'm not sure which way he's going to go, because he will already be in the Caribbean. It's not a bad thing. I'm intrigued to see how Jordan Cox goes. If he goes and he does well, I know there's been a hell of a lot of people sticking a boot into Ollie Pope, and I don't really want to add to the misery on young Ollie. But if Jordan Cox comes in and smashes it number 7 and bats brilliantly, he bats at 3. He's batted at 3 for Kent, batted at 3 for Essex. There are people who think Jordan Cox could potentially bat 3 for England. So it's good to see him. I'd be tempted to give Jamie Smith the New Zealand off. I think he's had a whirlwind start. He was excellent in the summer. He's had a tough time. Not as a bad. I mean, as in a negative. It's tough keeping wicket in the subcontinent, that part of the world. So that'll be 3 test matches back to back to back. It's a long way, New Zealand. I'd be tempted just to say to Jamie Smith at the end of Rawalpindi, have New Zealand off and be ready for the one days that come, India after Christmas, and give him a little bit of a break, because I know he dropped the catch and missed a stumping, but I think his pathway and his ceiling level's massive. It's so high. I think he's a fantastic cricketer. And I'd say to Jordan Cox, there's 3 test matches for you. Go at them. Give us what you've got. Let's see if we can enhance the pool of players going into India and Australia, what will be 10 tough test matches. And if he does go well, there'll be an argument for is he going to sort of fight for that number 3 spot with Ollie Pope. So, but you're right. He's leaving. He is leaving. I'm not sure who's leaving with him, though, man. I'm not sure who's going with him. I think at this minute in time, I'd only send Jordan Cox to the Caribbean. England are going to send 2 players to the Caribbean to meet up with a one-day squad. But I can't think of the bowler, other than possibly Ollie Stone, that England might send to the Caribbean. But Cox is definitely going to go to the Caribbean. Then he's going to go on to New Zealand. So he's going to spend some time in airport lounges.
He is. He certainly is. I mean, he's a young man at the beginning of his England career. It intrigues me, though. I mean, you make it sound like he's in his 30s and he's been playing for 7 or 8 years. So he's a young man. I'm sure that he'd have mixed feelings at the very least if you said, "Okay, we're going to give you New Zealand off." If I was Jamie Smith, I'd be like, "No, I don't want it off.
Yeah, I'm sure he would, but I think with this group and the way Ben makes you feel and Brendan makes you feel and Rob Key, I always spoke highly about the human element of Keezy. He might be a clown at times and he might just, completely have disregard for any sort of establishment that's ever been in Rob Key's life. He does have, the big lad does have a soft heart, and he does have a way of going, well, there's more important things in life. And I think the birth of your first child, the way he's played his cricket over the course of the last sort of nine test matches. And I understand what you're saying. It would be take that time off. But I think the way it would be dressed up is you will be England's wicketkeeper in the first test match after New Zealand. You've been brilliant so far. Go and have a little bit of break. Enjoy the life experience of having your first child. It's not pleasant for mum, but it's brilliant for dad. And then spend some time at home. Understand what it's like to sort of be around, your child for the first 3 to 6 weeks of their life, and then focus on getting back, because you will be first name on a team sheet coming back. I think that's how it would be dressed up, and that's how I would sell it to him. And I would also be looking to give him a break, because he's had a tough, intense baptism in England and then in Pakistan. To fly out in the middle of a series in New Zealand, I think that would be a big ask.
Yes, your dear daughter, your firstborn, who is she now? 26, and she still hasn't.
26, yes.
She still hasn't forgiven you for missing her.
No, she hasn't. Abby's 20. So is she? No. What is she now? God Almighty! Yeah, Abby's 21 now. So yeah, and she hasn't forgiven me, especially when she wants money. It is. You know yourself, man, as you've been around cricket for far too long, that when you see players have to miss for the birth of their child, or they don't miss, the anxiety of the week leading into it, the anxiety of the week after it. This is a young man on a great journey. Is Jamie Smith? He's on a great journey. I think having a little bit of compassion and letting him spend some time at home, I think you'd get repaid so much when he comes back.
Okay, word about the Ashes schedule. It's been announced. The first time that the Gabba isn't hosting the first test of the Australian summer for something like 38 years, I think it is. Perth Stadium will host it with its capacity of somewhere between 40 and 50,000, isn't it? And
yeah.
That'll be brilliant. I think there'll be a lot of England supporters. Perth's slightly easier to get to, but the Gabba then hosts a day-night test before moving to Adelaide in the middle of December, and then the traditional MCG, SCG, Boxing Day, New Year test matches. Anything particularly grab you about the Ashes schedule?
Your sleep pattern between first and second test could be challenging. That was always the thing. You had the warm-up series when I was sort of back in the day. You had the warm-up series in Perth because everybody just wanted to go to Perth for the simple fact it's the closest place to get to. And then you had a 4.5 hour plane journey crossing 3 hour time zones to Brisbane for the first test match. And at least you had a week to prepare for it. But now England are going to go, finish on the 25th, and then they go to the Gabba and have to play in a day-night game. Sleep patterns will be one thing. Who on earth thought that it was a good idea to play a pink ball test at the Gabba? It does loads anywhere. Can you imagine with a pink ball under lights, that sort of middle session as the sort of sun goes down and the lights start taking effect, and it's zipping about anywhere. So I played day-night games in there with a white ball. The pink ball is going to be hellish. I thought Adelaide was a perfect place to play the pink ball test. The way the stadium is, the way the pitch is, doesn't do as much laterally. But the Gabba, if you get one of them juicy wickets that Australia sometimes produce, that could be an absolute minefield. But no, I'm excited. It's going to be a great series. Fantastic for the Barmy Army, who are already, I think, sold out for quite a lot of it. Travelling groups will be enjoying themselves. But it suits England, I think, going to Perth first test match. It's always daunting going into the Gabba, but I think it suits England going into that Perth stadium. because there's not been a great deal of cricket played there. The Wacker was, I mean, what a cricket ground that is! What a pitch that was. This stadium won't have the velocity that the Wacker has, because the Wacker was, I mean, you know, man, as the Wacker was an unbelievable place to play cricket, because it could be, I mean, bright sunshine, red hot, no air at all, and then the doctor would get going, and there would be a howling wind up your backside, and you know, I mean, it's just a unique place to play cricket. So it's a shame that they're not playing at the Wacker, but I think you're right. The spectacle of this new ground and the new stadium, first Test match, I think will set the scene for hopefully what will be a fantastic series.
And one story that caught my eye was the Bangladesh sacking coach Chandika Hathurusingha, and then making not being very subtle about the reasons for it, unapproved leave and also long list of offences. And Phil Simmons, the well-travelled Phil Simmons, coached the West Indies and Ireland and various other, he coached in Zimbabwe as well. Very popular man. He's taken over at Bangladesh. That was an interesting appointment.
It was close the door on your way out, but here's a list of why you're going. And I mean, they hit him on the back of the head about 40 things before he even got to the bottom of the stairs. I mean, I found that bizarre. I mean, if you take the job because it's financially it's rewarding, but I mean, you're not looking for a golden handshake when you leave. I mean, just somebody saying thank you would be nice. The previous coach didn't quite get the thank you he was probably wanting. But yeah, good to see Big Phil back in the game, because he is a popular man and he's an excellent coach.
And Harmy, it's that time of the show for the final word. There's one theme that I'd like to throw at you for the final word, and it involves the lesser playing nations. But the big story is the ICC Hall of Fame. Obviously not as prestigious as the Durham Hall of Fame, of which you were an inaugural inductee. But every year the ICC announce some new inductees into their Hall of Fame. There are over 100 now. And this year they included Sir Alistair Cook and A.B. de Villiers. So how honoured will the chef, the former England captain, and former England's leading run scorer, test run scorer, how honoured will he be?
Yeah, he'd be honoured. It takes a lot for him to get excited. So yeah, I've seen some of the pictures of him with I'm not sure if it was a hat or a scroll that'll go lovely in a frame on a wall. He looked really enjoyed. He did look really excited to be there, with that sort of little cheeky smile on his face. But no, I mean, when you get inducted like that, yeah, after your career, shows you what a special career you've had. And he has had one of the very best. It'll be interesting to know the ICC from an ICC point of view, because they are sometimes an absolute shambles. That the man had it on England's all-time record run scorer, and then realised last week Joe Root broke the record. So they might have been scurrying to a bit Tipex to rub some things out to honour the great man. But no, yeah, fair play. He had a wonderful career. So did A.B. de Villiers. I mean, a real game changer. Somebody who, especially in white ball cricket, I think there was a shining light that, the way the game fast forwarded into, the way the game is now. I played A.B. de Villiers' debut in Port Elizabeth. And I think we all knew then, along with Dale Steyn, that they were going to be two absolute superstars for South Africa. So, no, it's a huge congratulations to them, to all three who were inducted in this year. But a special one for somebody who I think the world of, and he is a special human being. He's a great person, and was one hell of a player. The former leading run scorer of all time for England.
Okay, so my final word this week, Harmy, is a confession that I have an obsession. And my obsession is looking at scorecards of games between minor nations, these various ICC qualifying tournaments, regional qualifiers, and looking at the scorecards and wondering how on earth people like Will Young or it's a sort of European-sounding names end up playing for Thailand. And actually, on the subject of Thailand, I was looking at their scorecard against Bhutan. They made 171 for 6 and bowled Bhutan out for 94. And there on the scorecard, amongst the top scorer for Thailand, by the way, was Chalermwong Chaipasan. So fairly certain that reliable that he's born and bred Thai.
I'm pleased you had to say that.
He made 52. Opening the bowling for Thailand, though, and the second top scorer with an unbeaten 45 was Jandre Coetzee. South Africans laugh a lot about the fact that they've got a South African in pretty much every minor team in the world. I mean, there's a guy called Kevin Peterson played for you, didn't he? But Jandre Coetzee, and I thought, gosh, I remember a Jandre Coetzee. He used to play for Griqualand West, and he wasn't quite good enough to make it. So I wondered whether it was the same man, and it is. He's now 40 years old. He was born in Springbok, of all places, and he's now playing international cricket. He wasn't good enough to hold down a place in the Griqualand West team in the early 2000s. So now he's playing international cricket for Thailand, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. I don't know his story. I don't know whether he was backpacking around the world. I don't think it would be so wonderful if he just turned up in Bangkok for the weekend, had a green curry and a couple of tiger lagers and ended up playing for Thailand. But I don't think that you can do that, can you? My question to you and my final word is, what do you think of these itinerant journeyman players ending up playing international cricket for the minor nations?
I don't mind it. I think it's quite good. You know, you players are playing for Thailand. If you come up against, or if you come and play in a team with, it's like having the overseas players in your dressing room. They bring a lot of difference, different qualities of how they prepare, stories from whoever they've played with, who have normally been. I'm sure for Griqualand West, there'll be some absolute superstars of the South African game in there that Coetzee had played with, and the stories they tell, the being around, I think it is really, really good. That was the way into England a few years ago, wasn't it? The Colpack way. If you were from Australia or you were from South Africa and you had we had Michael Di Veneto, play for us, and he got in through an Italian passport. He had to go and play for Italy a couple of times. So I didn't mind it because Div was one of the best players I ever played with. So yeah, I think it has its positives. It really does. If you have somebody going into these smaller nations who has been a professional cricketer at a good level, he might not have been a very good player, but he's played at a good level and played with really, really good players. I think it rubs off and it spreads the word. We're in this game in England. We think football was developed in 1992 when the Premier League was around. And the football was really good before that. We just played on muddier pitches. We think we play cricket with 10 nations. We don't. We say it every single time on this show about the final word. It is played by 150 different countries. And I think that's the beauty about the game. So if somebody couldn't get a game for one country and can get into another one, then so be it. It makes the game better. But you're right. We have benefited awfully well from having South Africans in our group. We have. We've had some good ones, we've had some bad ones, and we've had some absolute superstars. And yes, he wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but a certain Kevin Peterson makes a difference when he comes and plays for you. And he's always quite good fun in the dressing room as well, because everybody loves to have a go at the South Africans, don't they, when they're in the dressing room? So yeah, I'm all for it. I really am all for it.
Yeah, me too. You've been listening to Following On here on talkSPORT 2 with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison. And we'll be back next week to look back at the third test against Pakistan and ahead to England's white ball tour of the West Indies, which we shall be broadcasting live ball by ball on talkSPORT 2.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.